Hi, I'm Cyril Filias, the Bilingual Learning and Development Specialist at CERIC. And on behalf of CERIC, I would like to welcome you to today's webinar. Today's webinar is the second of our series, and we are thrilled to see the numbers of registration continue to grow. And today we are delighted to have Kimberly Howard live with us from Boston, who will talk more about the conceptions of the career choice and attainment model. But before Kimberly gets started, we would like to take a few moments to introduce you to CERIC for those of you who were not with us for the first webinars. CERIC is a charitable organization that focuses on education and research in career counseling and career development in Canada. We invest in an ambitious research and learning agenda by funding projects to develop innovative resources like the Career Theories and Model at Work book, as well as creating learning opportunities like this webinar series to build the knowledge and skills of career professionals. The CERIC had three main programs: the Canexus National Career Development Conference, held in Ottawa in Canada, and coming up again this January. The careerrise.ca website, which features the top news and views in the field, with a French version called orientation.ca, and the Canadian Journal of Career Development, which is free to access. So you can learn more about all of the CERIC work and resources at ceric.ca. Now, some just quick housekeeping notes. If during today's webinar you have any questions, please enter them in the question box you see on your screen. Kimberly will respond to them at the end of the webinar. A week after the webinar series ends, we will email you a copy of the presentation slide as well as the recording of the three webinars. So you can expect to receive an email from us around November 11th. We also encourage you to engage with this webinar on social media using this popular Twitter hashtag that you can see on your screen. Bringing the Career Theories and Model at Work book to life will not have been possible without the tremendous work of the three co-editors, Nancy authors, Mary McMahon, and Roberta Notes. And today, I'm delighted to have Nancy authors who recorded an introductory video for you from Australia.
Hello, welcome to CERIC's webinar series on career theories and models at work, ideas for practice. My name is Nancy Arthur and I'm joining you today from the University of South Australia in Adelaide. We developed this project with two goals in mind. First of all, we wanted to produce a resource that provided ways to enhance career practitioners' knowledge of contemporary theories and models. Second of all, we wanted to develop a resource that was very practical and that helped practitioners identify the connections between theory and practice. I invited colleagues Roberta Nolte from Canada and Mary McMahon from Australia to join me as editors for the project. We identified colleagues from more than 9 countries across 4 continents to expand international perspectives in the book. Each of the 43 chapters provides an overview of a different theory or model, an original case vignette written by the chapter authors, an analysis of the vignette, and a page full of practice points. We hope that you will find this resource to be very useful for your practice setting. Today's webinar is going to focus on Chapter 16. Our presenter is Kimberly Howard from Boston University in the United States. Kimberly is going to present about developmentally aligned career programming for PK12 students, the conceptions of the career choice and attainment model. I want to say thank you to CERIC for sponsoring our book project and for sponsoring today's webinar series on career theories and models at work, ideas for practice. Enjoy the webinar.
I'm very excited to be here today and pleased to be invited to be part of this webinar series. Thank you for being with us. As you know, my name is Kimberly Howard. I'm at Boston University. And there at this university, I teach in the counseling psychology programs. I'm the director of the doctoral program in counseling psychology, and I'm deeply involved in the training of school counselors as well. I have always had a deep interest in the career development of children and youth, and a desire to ensure that all children have the opportunity to get that good foundation for career education starting very early in schooling. And so, as you can see, the title of my talk is very much aligned with that. But before I launch into my talk, I did want to give a little bit more of an introduction into why I do this work and how I got here. And in reflecting on this, I realized that I became interested in career development before I realized I was interested in career development work. I had a number of events happened early when I was in high school and in college that really caused me pause. I grew up here in the United States in a state called Maine. It's up in the northeastern part of the United States. It's a small state, or it has a small population anyway. Very few cities. Those cities are small cities, many small towns, lots of rural areas. And we had a string of incidents around that time when there would be a company that was a major employer in a particular town or region. And we had a number of instances where for some reason that employer would go out, whether it was they closed their doors or they moved their operations elsewhere. And the communities in which this happened were really rocked and some of them devastated. And I just remember thinking very deeply about what does that mean for the people that are left behind, that either were employed by that organization or were had small businesses in the community that catered to the needs of the individuals who had been working in those organizations. And when you are in a small town in a rural area, you may not have a range of different options available to you after that employer goes out. And then when I was in graduate school, I had the great fortune to work in an elementary school here in Boston. It was a very diverse school, diverse student body, but also the students were, many of them were low income and came from some stressful at times conditions. I had the opportunity to spend some time talking with the elementary school students about their ideas around work, jobs that they knew about, careers that they knew about. In some ways, I came away from this disheartened by the small range of work opportunities and careers that they knew of. There were a limited range that were in view, that were around them so that they were aware of them, a limited range that they thought were available to them and accessible to them in the future. And so these set of experiences really brought me to where I am now, where I was think deeply about how people think about and understand work, and what that means for how we, whether we're interventionists, whether we're educators, school counselors, counselors in the community, what that means for how we work with them. It's also at the same time important to me that sometimes studying something just in and of itself can be fascinating, but it's also important to me that when I focus my professional work in an area, that it creates something useful, something that can complement the work that you do. And so I'm hoping that the model that I present today will be useful to you, that there will be pieces of it that will be useful to you, and that it will complement the work that you're doing already with students and with clients. Okay, excellent. So that was my early motivation, and as I continue in this field, as you all know, the world of work continues to change. And so the youth of, while I was motivated by one set of circumstances early on, we know that the youth of today are facing a whole new set of career development challenges. We are squarely in the fourth industrial revolution. So it's obvious to all of us that there have been, over the past decade, several decades, rapid technological advances occurring in our world. With the fourth industrial revolution, we see that the use of robotics, the importance of artificial intelligence, the use of automation, the Internet of Things, this way of doing work is on the rise and is unlikely to slow down anytime soon. And with these rapid technological changes, we find that new jobs are being created. Some jobs are becoming obsolete. And even jobs that continue to exist, the nature of them is changing, and that increasingly there is the expectation that people will be coming in with some basic technological skills. With the rapid advances in technology also comes an increase in the need for individuals to recognize that respecialization is going to be required of them throughout their work life. That career preparation doesn't just happen once, but that they're going to need to commit to and know how to expand and adapt their skill set over time. And then also, hand in hand with this, is we're seeing a transition from what we used to talk about as soft skills and the importance of soft skills to success in the world of work. And this discussion, this conversation is shifting now to the discussion of deeper human skills, which we are coming to understand as really a set of advanced social emotional learning skills. And these include things like self-awareness, insight into others and into processes, empathy, ability to engage in complex communication, being adaptable, being resilient, and so forth. So together, this creates a very unique and interesting challenge for today's youth as they're preparing themselves for the future. So in this increasingly complex work environment, opportunities are needed by all youth to develop the skills necessary for entering the world of work, but then also for managing what will be a dynamic career in a dynamic world of work. So what's expected of them and what they're going to need to do is going to be changing, all while the world of work around them is changing. Career planning and management, and this is going to require skills, understanding of, commitment to career planning and management over time. And this means that if we're looking at the K-12 context, which is what I'll be talking about today, that we're not just focused on teaching content, but really it's important that we're also focused on teaching process as well, teaching children and youth about career development processes. So as I mentioned, I take a PK12 approach to career development. It's very important to me that I make sure that I put out there that establishing a good foundation for college and career readiness begins early. It begins in elementary school. It begins when students come through the door. I know I've experienced some pushback to that, saying that this is too early, that we need to allow kids to be kids, and we certainly do. But at the same time, we do need to recognize that they are looking at the world of work around them. They're looking at the people, the important people in their lives who are engaged in work, and they're trying to make sense of that world. And they're doing it with whatever they know and the skills they have at that point in time. And so they're doing it whether we're paying attention or not. And sometimes that leads to some very narrow ideas or limited understandings of what's possible for them and for others. And so it's important that we recognize that, and we start early to get kids going on a good career path. And I think it's important at this point to also mention that we know that the best practices literature in education makes it clear that the most effective learning activities are those that are designed with the developmental level of the learner in mind. It's expected that curricula in the academic subject areas, math, reading, science, are created and delivered in such a way that they match the cognitive abilities of the students that are in the classroom. And this same principle should be applied to the area of career development. That is, developmentally appropriate career education should be tailored to students' conceptual level, where they're at conceptually in understanding careers and themselves in relation to careers. So the model that I'll be presenting today, the Conceptions of Career Choice and Attainment model, is a framework that can be used by school-based professionals as well as youth development practitioners to help children's career development progress in that positive direction. The model is based on existing theory and research that has examined across a range of different phenomena, has examined the way that children and adolescents conceptualize phenomena, whether that's something like illness or ethnicity. It can be applied in a range of different ways. And it describes three approaches to career development, to understanding and reasoning about career development processes. And these three approaches are association, sequence, and interaction. Within each approach are 2 levels of reasoning for a total of 6 that then characterize children's conceptualizations of career development. And while this model emphasizes developmental level and not age, it is generally the case that younger elementary age children reason at the association levels. When you get to the upper elementary and middle school, we see children and youth reasoning at the sequence levels. And then the interaction levels are generally witnessed in the reasoning of adolescents as they're nearing the end of their secondary education. Not all children, we should note that not all children develop at the same pace. And some may never reach that highest level of reasoning, kind of that most complex level of reasoning about career choice and attainment. So let me move into the model now. So the first 2 levels are the association approach. And this is characterized by children's use of imagination and fantasy to comprehend the world of work. In this approach, there's a marked inability to recognize how one chooses or secures a job or career in the future, or even that there is a process involved in making career decisions. When given the opportunity to pick a career or talk about careers, children generally choose careers that they can imagine themselves doing, and they understand career attainment as simply putting on the associated attire or equipment. There's no recognition that there's a decision-making process or a training process that then leads to career attainment. And then within association, there are the 2 levels. At level 1, pure association, children are able to recognize that a job or a career exists, but they lack awareness of any sort of process of choosing or obtaining this career. We're at the 2nd level, magical thinking. Children are able to identify a basic method of career choice and attainment, such as having the proper attire and the accessories, while also not being able to identify a mechanism for how one chooses that occupation or secures it. So they might believe that simply having a stethoscope and a white lab coat makes you a doctor. That's how you become a doctor. The second approach, sequence, is characterized by a child's ability to identify some type of mechanism now through which choice or attainment of a career may occur. So this mechanism could be an activity in which one engages or an event or situation that you experience. A child operating from this approach identifies interests and aligns those with career preferences based on those interests. Along with their interests, they gain an awareness of their strengths and their weaknesses, allowing these to inform career choices as well, or what they think their direction might be as they get older. Children operating from a sequence approach not only understand career choice and career attainment as processes, but they also recognize them as separate processes at this point. So they see that there is a difference. They're able to describe how processes of career choice and attainment relate. And usually this involves a set of sequential steps, such as graduating from high school, then attending college, followed by starting the job. But what they lack is a nuanced understanding of that process, that career development process. Their thinking is limited to concrete steps, each one guaranteeing the occurrence of the next one, and contingencies are not accounted for in this particular approach. So children may engage in two levels of reasoning within the sequence approach. At level 3, external activities, we see that children comprehend careers through external observable activities and skills that they believe lead to obtaining the job. While they acknowledge that certain steps, such as getting a college degree, are required to attain the job, they are unable to explain how exactly that college degree leads to the job. Therefore, their reasoning is restricted to believing that if one engages in activity X, then they will automatically be able to attain job Y afterwards. At level 4, internal processes and capacities, children are now able to understand that job attainment is the result of a process of acquiring specific skills and knowledge related to that job. And they select jobs that match their perceived interests and abilities. So they're really bringing in ability at this particular point. And in the final approach, interaction, older children are able to appreciate and integrate the role of multiple factors, even abstract concepts such as occupational prestige. They're able to bring that into their understanding of how you choose future careers and how you go about attaining them. The progression parallels the development of adolescents' ability to reason more abstractly now. So at this stage, now that they're able to reason more abstractly, a complex constellation of factors related to career decision making has emerged. The adolescent draws from interests, abilities, traits, values, and prestige in order to select a smaller, more focused set of career options for themselves or career directions. They're able to appreciate the role of contextual, systemic, and environmental influences on career choice and attainment as well. For example, adolescents begin to account for the availability of the job or the occupation in their area, training opportunities that may be available to them, and the status of the job market as they're making decisions about their future. And while this information may have been available to them in the past, they're now ready to comprehend and utilize it in their career development process. The processes of career attainment and career choice parallel one another at this stage. So adolescents incorporate into their reasoning and appreciation for the bidirectional and dynamic interaction of personal attributes and job or career details, such as job availability. Adolescents engage in two levels of reasoning within the interaction approach. Reasoning at level 5, which I call interaction, can lead to many potential outcomes as they begin to consider a complex interaction of those personal attributes and environmental influences on career choice. Career attainment involves the interaction of personal, relational, and immediate environmental levels, influences at all three of those levels. And then at level 6, systemic interaction, adolescents now are using those same factors, thinking about them in a complex, dynamic, interactive way, as they did at level 5, but now they're able to bring in even more abstract concepts such as employment trends, such as the impact of advancing technology on the world of work. So their understanding of career attainment at this level involves the addition of environmental and societal factors as well. So for example, adolescents include in their reasoning an understanding that the world of work is rapidly changing and new occupations are emerging. So in summary, this model can provide a framework that professionals can use then with children and with adolescents, with their students, with their clients, to understand this developmental progression in cognitive reasoning regarding career choice, career attainment, career development processes. And you can use this then to inform the design and development of career development activities that you might be delivering. For the purposes of this talk now, I have, we can also then use this model to suggest activities that might be helpful at each of these reasoning levels. And so for the purpose of this talk, I've organized these suggestions to follow loosely a taxonomy of learning objectives that's utilized in the US National Career Development Guidelines, loosely based on that. And I'll also point out that different countries have blueprint models that are similar, may move beyond the career development guidelines, may have a different set of learning objectives embedded within them. But I'll rely on basically these learning objectives for now. So the expanded taxonomy then that I'm going to use involves first focusing on content knowledge. What is the content knowledge needed in order to prepare for the world of work at each of these, in a developmentally appropriate way, at each of these levels? So this includes both knowledge of self and knowledge of the world of work. We then address the different processes involved in career development and those that students should become familiar with. We next examine the application by students of their career-related knowledge that they've gained. And then we focus on reflection and continued refinement of career-related knowledge and its application by students. So these will be the 4 objectives that we take a look at. So first, children at each level of reasoning in this model benefit from expanding their knowledge of themselves and of the world of work in order then to prepare for their future. In the early grades, this can be accomplished through play. Young children benefit from the opportunity to use toys that represent various occupations, particularly when that play is accompanied by an explanation of how the toys are related to the occupation. So it's not just providing them and allowing them to try them on and play dress up, but really helping them to understand, what does this represent in this occupation and why is it important for the people who do this type of work? As they move then into later elementary school and middle school, we want to focus our career education programming on activities that encourage them to explore their interests, their skills, and their values in how they can connect these to potential occupations, how these are reflected in various lines of work. They also benefit from continued opportunities to expand their knowledge of various careers, and this can be accomplished through some of the very common activities that you're likely already doing, such as occupation-related field trips, having speakers come into the classroom or come into the school, and shadowing experiences, whether that's parents or other adults that are connected to the school. Adolescents can expand their content knowledge through project-based learning activities in which they can research careers more in depth. And these types of activities also then mirror the teamwork expectations that we find that a growing number of occupations are expecting and requiring of their employees. The goal then of these types of activities with adolescents is to help them explore structural and systemic influences that may impact their pursuit of future occupations, and then also to identify potential contingencies or challenges that may be important for them to consider. They may not know what's going to be thrown their way, but you can be guaranteed that something will be thrown their way. And so how might they respond and react in situations like that? Next, the second objective is the process of career development. We want to help students understand the processes involved in these types of career tasks. In the early grades, we may merely want students to understand that there is a process you go through to choose and pursue jobs. It doesn't just magically happen just by showing up or just by putting on the firefighter's coat and boots and jumping on the truck. That there is a process that you have to go through. Field trips and career days can be useful for this purpose, and these are things that we oftentimes do with elementary school kids already. But the important thing here is that it's not just this exposure, but it's important for the speakers, whether you're bringing speakers in or you are visiting other places. It's important for those speakers to discuss how and why they chose their job and what they needed to get it. These are the types of activities that are going to help move kids who are in an association level of understanding about career development closer to then those sequence levels of understanding. And we don't need them to go 0 to 60. We're just trying to move them up one level and then the next level and then the next. So then for students that are in later elementary school and middle school grades, we want to facilitate familiarity with the role of values and needs in the career decision-making process and the role that those play in how you approach career decision-making. So our programming should focus on the steps involved in career choice, career attainment, career preparation and management. And career activities could involve the process of goal setting, for example, in which students need to set a goal and then identify the steps needed to achieve it. And this is helping them become more sophisticated in their understanding of these steps and what it takes to move forward in your preparation and in your career management. For adolescents, we want to encourage an understanding of the need for career adaptability. So this is one of those deeper human skills that is increasingly being required for successfully managing and navigating the world of work. So this can be accomplished by an exploration with adolescents of the what ifs. So what if the job market changes? How would you shift? How would you react? How would you figure out how to shift? What if new occupations are developed? How would you learn about them? How would you consider them and determine whether that might be a direction you'd like to go? With technology changes, what do you need to be able to do? How is that going to change what you'll need to be able to do in the occupations that you are considering for yourself? Or what if your family situation changes and you need greater flexibility in your work hours? How would you navigate that? So giving them the opportunities to contemplate, and they don't need to have exact plans for this. It's the point is to help them to understand that these things and these changes will happen and that they have the capacity to consider kind of these dynamic changes that are happening around them, and then to think about what that would mean for them moving forward. Our third learning objective then is the application of knowledge. So this is most relevant then for students in the sequence in the interaction levels. Kids who are in earlier elementary, we wouldn't necessarily be expecting them. This isn't where we would focus our attention. For students in late elementary grades and in middle school grades, we want them to apply their career-related knowledge by completing projects, perhaps project-based learning activities. Those activities, as we mentioned before, could involve goal setting and goal pursuit strategies, or it could be an exercise where they're given a case study or scenario, and they're asked to develop a career plan for this particular case. So we don't always need it to be about them, but it could be about what they would recommend or what they would anticipate for this fictional case that we're giving them. Adolescents then can apply their knowledge through activities such as resume writing or engaging in work-based learning opportunities or connecting activities. And these could be things like job shadowing opportunities, internships, engaging in informational interviews with people who are in roles that they are considering for themselves in the future. And then our last learning objective, to which we can crosswalk the CCCA model, is then reflection and refinement. So here, this objective, again, as before, is most relevant for students that are reasoning in a sequence set of levels or interaction set of levels. Those that are students that are in late elementary and middle school can benefit from activities that might challenge them to broaden their perspective-taking abilities. Have them imagine what life might be like in the future, perhaps 5, 10, 20 years, whatever interval you think is appropriate. What do they anticipate themselves doing in school or in work? What does their life look like? What do they want to be similar? What do they want to be different to how it is now? And have them consider what they'll need to learn, what kind of skills they'll need in order to reach that future that they're envisioning for themselves. With adolescents, you would take this activity a step further then and have them reflect on how their interests and their skills may change over that period of time. And how that might change. What might be the experiences that they anticipate they're going to have as they continue through secondary school and into post-secondary training opportunities or education, and how might those impact, whether broaden or narrow or set them off on a different direction when it comes to interests and skills. And what about also their values and their needs? We want them to be thinking dynamically about the range of different personal characteristics and situations that they may have. How would these then interact with systemic influences like local or national economy, changes in the local or national economy? How might this interaction shape their career goals, the direction that they may take for themselves? And how would these same contextual influences impact the way that they went about pursuing or pursuing a job or an occupation, or managing their work life once they're in the world of work? So what we're trying to do here is really further the complexity of their thinking about work and their readiness then for those post-secondary opportunities, whether that's some type of training, whether that is post-secondary education, and then also their readiness for transitioning eventually into the world of work. So at this point, we have some time, and I'm hoping that there may be some questions that, or a discussion that we can engage in. I hope that this has been useful for you. As I mentioned before, it's important for me to try and contribute to the work that's happening on the ground in our schools, in our communities. And I hope that this may provide a new or a different lens that complements the career development theories and models that you currently use. Thank you so much for your attention, and let's turn to your thoughts now.
Thank you very much, Kimberly. So as you said, it's now time for the questions, and we have a few that came in. And for those of you who haven't sent a question yet, please feel free to use the question/chat box that you see on your screen. All right, so the first question for you comes from Audrey, asking what is the consequence when someone doesn't reach the level 5? And she was referring to the level that you described earlier.
Yeah, I'm so glad that you mentioned that. I could have, I didn't, but I could have brought in some research that we have, that we've done with middle school and high school youth in looking at their narratives that they've written about themselves, their career goals, that, you know, what they see for themselves, and that has been paired with our assessment of a range of different career and workforce readiness skills and dispositions. And one of the things that we have found is that for high school youth, those youth that are reaching the end of their secondary school years, if they have not reached that interaction level, that at least the level 5, we find that we find a depression, if you will, in some markers of career, college and career readiness. So we find that those students that are still, they're in high school, but they're still thinking about work, they're thinking about themselves in relation to work at kind of that sequence level where they're focused on just the steps that are inevitable, and they're not thinking in that dynamic way, that they are reporting lower levels of confidence in their, not only their career development, you know, engaging in important career development practices such as self-exploration, exploring the world of work, knowing where to find labor market information, feeling prepared to make a decision for themselves, or to explore post-secondary training and education options. So they're reporting a lower sense of confidence in their ability to do those things, engage in those key activities, and they're also it also impacts their sense of confidence, or is related to their sense of confidence in the academic realm. So when we ask about types of tasks that may be relevant in the classroom and managing the learning in the classroom, seeking out extra help, asking questions when you're unsure, problem solving, knowing how to organize their time, things that are more academically oriented, also relevant to career development. But they have a lower scores in those areas as well. We also see it in the domains of academic motivation. So feeling motivated and self-directed in taking on the tasks that will help them achieve their goals in the academic realm, which would then become the foundation for what they would do later. And then the other area where we see an impact, or at least we've looked at, there may be others that were outside of the studies that we've done, but the other area then is their self-reported sense of well-being. And so we have looked at well-being as far as, you know, are they reporting high or low levels of symptoms of depression, of experiencing some anxiety, sleep issues, agitation, things like that. that students who are not thinking about their futures in this more dynamic way are experiencing more of those challenges to their well-being as well. So I hope that is helpful. Those are the areas that we've looked at so far, and I'm imagining that some of you may also have a sense of other domains of functioning that may also be related to not yet reaching this more complex level of thinking about careers and themselves in relation to careers. Thank you for that question.
Thank you, Kimberly. I have another question wondering if you have any thought on how to identify which level of reasoning the student is at.
I do. So, in the hope with the model is that we know that there's enough correspondence generally between grade level and the complexity of their thinking in relation to this model, that when we're crafting just activities that are for all the students, that we would use where we anticipate the majority of the students would be, we would use that as our marker, and then look at the next level as being kind of our goal, as where we'd like to get them. And that's helpful generally when you're thinking about a classroom or a group of students. But you're right that we may be working with individuals, and it would be helpful to be able to identify, we might have a ninth grader, somebody who's just started high school in front of us, and can we be confident that they are actually thinking in a dynamic way about their career or not? Or do we suspect that they may still be thinking in that more sequential, more concrete type of way? I have developed a set of questions that can easily be embedded in just a very casual career interview. So if they come in to work with you to ask you for some help, or you're talking with them about their ideas, just a set of questions that if you ask these questions and ask them to expand upon those, because they'll usually give you most of the time a very short answer. And then if you ask them you probe a little bit further about how will those things help you, it can give you an indication then of, are they still thinking about this in career development as a series of steps that lead kind of in a linear type of direction, or are they at the point now where they are really thinking more dynamically? And so if that's something that would be of interest to you to see some of those questions, I'm happy to provide those to you, and also some links to places where I've published that as well.
Thank you, Kimberly. Okay, so I have another question and a comment from Brittany. Asking you how she should prioritize the sequence. So she said, I run a career awareness program for grade 7 in my district, and we see over 12 students per academic year. Our session only run 2 hours, so I'm wondering if for the sequence level student, which of the 4 steps do you think will be most impactful to focus on during those 2 hours, as we cannot fit all of them in the session?
Right. I think, so one of the things that happens when I teach here at BU is my students very quickly come to recognize that my favorite response is, it depends. And I always tell them that my goal as their instructor is to help them start to be able to answer for themselves, to pose that question to themselves, and to answer what it depends upon. And so I think with the 7th graders, one of the things that I would wonder is, that I would want to know first is, have they had opportunities in the grades before to do that exploration of self in the world of work, to examine things that they might be good at, skills that they have, to kind of map on things that they're already really interested in, they do in their free time, map that onto skill sets. I think about kids who are excellent at games like Minecraft and a Kerbal Space Program, and that maps onto a range of different skill sets and helping them to identify what do you like and then what does that mean for your skills. Have they already had the opportunity to do that exploration? Have they already had the opportunity to learn about the various types of post-secondary training? So, I know that a lot of kids right now have in their mind that college is where they need to go, but there are a range of different ways you can do college, but then also there are training programs as well. So have they had the opportunities to do that? Because I think that those are really critical. They can't understand how to apply things if they don't know, have that knowledge or know where to find that knowledge. So if they've had the opportunities to do that, I would suggest then in the 2 hours that you have, that you might want to focus on that third learning objective, the application then of that knowledge. So you could do a little bit at the beginning to remind them, because students always benefit from, remember last year we were teaching you how to use these career information systems, how to find this type of information. So do some reminding of what they've learned before, and then really focus on that application level in the 7th grade. Now, if you find that the students, that 7th grade is, in your community, 7th grade is where the formal career exploration programming starts, then you may need to back up and help facilitate that self-exploration and help students become aware of and know how to use whatever career information resources are available, whether that's an online type of system or resources that you may have in your school or in your center. So I think, if you can be confident that they know that they've had some training before, I would say focus on that third learning objective.
Thank you, Kimberly. Okay, so I got a question from Stephanie. As an educator, how do you address the parental block of career exploration? Parents often have a very strong opinion of what their child should do or study. Is there a way to address the stigma associated with certain career paths that are less impressive in their eyes?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. I really like this question, and I have one of the things that I did not talk about was the movement in the U.S. and I know in other countries as well around developing individualized learning plans, and different countries, different organizations, different states here in the U.S. may call that something different, an academic and career plan, something like that. It's different from an IEP, which is addressing accommodation needs and so forth for some type of identified disability. It's really about a plan that is both a document and a process, documenting the skills that I have developed, the things that I've learned about myself, the things that I've learned about the world of work, and then also a process for how I continue to explore and prepare myself for what's coming later. One of the things that we've found is that when school districts adopt this type of model and use this type of model, there is it's a very student-driven type of process, and it involves then an excellent set of opportunities to bring parents in and to have their students share with them the very involved process that they've gone through to come to their ideas about what they might want to pursue. And that process we have found in a number of different situations, has really helped with the exact issue that you're bringing up. And I think this was Stephanie's comment or question, that it's addressed very well, that exact type of situation where once parents see the genuine and detailed process of exploration that their child has gone through. And then also when they see how that opportunity can be a stepping stone and map onto other opportunities, that it doesn't need to be the end point, that we've found a real shift and more support being demonstrated amongst parents for those choices that their students are making that perhaps don't align with what they would want for their kids. So I hope that's helpful.
Thank you, Kimberly. Question from Holly. What experience have you had in using these theories with K-12 youth with learning disabilities?
Yeah. So, you know, that's an excellent point, and that's why also I wanted to stress a couple of things. One being that while we can use the model to get a general sense of where kids in a particular classroom at a particular grade level may be in their understanding of themselves in the world of work, career development processes, that we know that there's going to be variation amongst that group, and with depending upon what the disability may be, that may or may not be true for any particular student who's on an IEP or has some type of accommodations for learning needs. And so in a case such as that, I would really love to see this type of assessment, kind of using some of these simple questions to ask them about how they're thinking about careers and their preparation for the world of work, to identify for a student with a disability a little more closely where they might be, because then you could tailor activities if they need something a little bit different. If maybe they're in the 7th grade and they're not yet at the higher levels of interaction, then you may need to do kind of some more targeted type of career activities that are focused more on bringing them from that late association set of levels into the sequence levels. You may need to kind of target your interventions differently. That's one point I wanted to make. And the other point is, you know, and I appreciate you bringing this up, because oftentimes when I do a presentation like this, I have a slide that is that says all means all, that we need to make sure that when we're providing career development programming, that we are providing it for all students, that we are not assuming that because of a particular student's constellation of learning needs, that they have less need for access to quality career programming, or that they have less of a need to be challenged to move to those more abstract levels of thinking about it. So thank you for that question.
Thank you, Kim. And we got a few comments about the great set of questions you used during the career interviews. So people are asking if there is a way of getting those questions that they can use during the career interview somewhere, or maybe they can contact you. But yeah, we got a lot of comment on that.
Okay, great. And so perhaps what we could do is just see if there's a way that I'm not sure if we can facilitate that through CERIC, but we will figure that out, and we will get news out to all of you as to how to access those questions. Absolutely, I'd be happy to share that.
Wonderful. And I will combine a few questions that come together, and that will be the last for today. That's a question asking what happens if students already ending high school and they are not motivated to participate in career counseling, or they do have a low self-esteem. How to motivate them to be prepared for the challenging coming ahead, either in the world of work or for post-secondary education.
Right, right. Yes. I mean, this is always, you know, something that comes up and is a challenge if you have a student that outwardly does not appear motivated to engage in this process. You know, what's behind that? And there really isn't one answer. That's what makes it so complex, right? If we knew what was behind it, then we would have a very deliberate way that we could intervene. So the first step would be to ascertain to the best of your ability what might be getting in the way, what might be holding back that motivation to engage in this. For some students, it may be, you know, I just don't think that there's a point. I have heard too often that I'm not smart, I'm not skilled, I'm not good enough, and so it's not going to make a difference for me, right? That's one set of, that's one type of scenario. For another student, it may be feeling very anxious about not knowing, like, oh, I don't know what I'm good at. I don't know what I'm interested in. And so there's an anxiety which then blocks them from being able to engage in that self-exploration process. And then for other kids, it could be, you know, I see oftentimes students saying, I'm really bored with what I'm learning in the classroom for whatever reason. I don't see the relevance of this. And for those students, we oftentimes start with finding something that they're interested in, and it may be that you could do this for all three of these scenarios. Finding something outside of school that they're interested in. How do they spend their time? And then you can use our career information systems to then map that onto a set of skills, because once kids start to see that they have a set of skills, and then once you plug those skills in and it gives you a list of occupations that align with those skills and need those skills, that can be a real turning point for kids. And depending upon which of these three scenarios, you know, that may just be the starting point, that may be the linchpin, that may be the thing that switches, kind of switches the direction for them. But I would definitely start with not asking them about careers, not asking them about school, but really focusing more on how do they like to spend their time? You know, what is it when they watch TV? What do they watch? When they play video games, what's the nature of those games? When they spend time with their friends, what types of activities do they like to do? So thank you so much. Thank you, all of you, for being here on the webinar and for your great questions. And I will work with CERIC to make sure you can get access to those questions.
Thank you, Kim. And as you said, it was the last question for today. It was really great to see all this question coming through the webinar. So thank you all for your engagement today. Unfortunately, we're not able to address all the questions we received today. So I encourage you to contact Kimberly to continue the conversation. So a huge thank you, Kimberly, for your presentation today. We got a chance to discuss the key features of the CCCA model to better understand the way children reason about career-related processes. So we hope that the school-based professionals and practitioners working with youth who are with us today enjoyed your webinar as much as we did. And as mentioned at the beginning of the webinars, on November 11, we will email you a link to the recording of the webinar along with a copy of the slides. So you can learn more about the Career Theories and Model at Work book, including how you can get your own copy at ceric.ca/theories. As our webinar series continue, we will see you back Monday, November 4, with Tom Lucan, retired researcher and professor from New Zealand, who will talk about the acceptance and commitment therapy. Now it's time for you to tell us what you thought of this webinar today and to tell us more of your future learning needs. So a short evaluation survey will pop up on your screen as soon as the webinar ends. We will really appreciate you provide us with your feedback. Thank you everyone for joining us today and have a good day.